Here's something that doesn't add up on paper. Two iron heads can look almost identical on the rack, similar size, similar shape, and still play like they came from two completely different tiers of forgiveness, because the shelf label isn't telling you what's actually built into the head. That gap is exactly where most guys past 60 are quietly losing strokes. If you're past 60 and still gaming the iron shape you played in your 30s, that set is costing you strokes and it's probably not your swing. Today I'm ranking every iron category from worst to best for a slower swing, based on the engineering. By the top pick, you'll know which shelf has been working against you. Here's the physics behind every verdict you're about to hear, because none of it makes sense without it. Forgiveness in an iron head is a trade-off. Pack the weight in tight behind a small face and you get maximum control if you catch the ball dead center, but almost no protection if you don't. Spread that same weight out toward the edges of a bigger head instead, and the club resists twisting on a miss-hit, plus the center of gravity sits lower, which gets the ball airborne without extra effort on your end. The 70 to 90 miles per hour swing, which covers most guys a decade or two past their prime, doesn't find the same spot on the face nearly as often as it used to. So the design built to protect a wandering strike belongs in your bag, not the compact shape sitting on the better player shelf. There's a second variable almost nobody in a pro shop brings up: shaft weight. The standard steel shaft is heavy enough that it fights you on the way down, and at a slower swing speed you don't have extra force to spare fighting your own equipment. Hold on to that, it matters again later. This is the first breakdown in a series I'm running category by category, for a slower swing specifically. Irons are where we start because they cost seniors more strokes than any other club in the bag. Let's start at the bottom. Tour blades and muscle back irons. These are the compact, thin top-line heads with almost no perimeter weighting, so the actual margin for error is smaller than the ball you're trying to hit. The sole is narrow too, built to slide through turf on a steep, tour caliber angle of attack, which means a shallower or slightly inconsistent strike, common once a swing has slowed down, tends to catch the leading edge instead of gliding through. A tour player can carry a head like this because their strike location barely moves from shot to shot. A slower, less repeatable swing cannot make that same promise. Catch it even a touch off centre on a true muscle back and the penalty shows up twice, in how far it goes and where it goes, because nothing in the head is built to catch that mistake for you. Cavity back blades soften that penalty a little. There's a thin channel of weight moved toward the edges, but the head is still small, the sole is still narrow, and the margin for error is still built around someone who can find the centre of the face on command. If you're a senior golfer who's kept blades in the bag, because that's what I've always played, here's the uncomfortable part. Your strike pattern isn't the same as it was at 40. The club doesn't know you used to be able to carry this head. It just punishes whatever mishit lands in front of it. There's one exception worth naming, honestly, because pretending there are zero exceptions is its own kind of dishonesty. A senior golfer who's kept a genuinely repeatable strike, someone still finding the centre of the face round after round, isn't automatically wrong to keep a blade-style short iron in the bag, where control matters more than raw forgiveness. That's a real exception. But it applies to a small slice of golfers, and if you're not certain you belong in that slice, you almost certainly don't, and the club in your hands is working against you more than it's helping. Blades sit dead last on this list for a slower swing overall, and nostalgia doesn't change that. One recommendation while we're between categories: if you want the full comparison, matched to your actual swing speed and handicap instead of just my voice ranking categories at you, there's a code up on the screen you can hover your phone over right now, and that same link lives in the description and gets pinned in the comments below if you'd rather come back to it later. It drops you straight into the full breakdown. I built it so you can hold it up next to a rack in the pro shop and know in 5 seconds exactly which shelf you're standing in front of. Alright, category 2. One tier up, players' irons and standard players' distance irons. This is where it gets tempting because these actually look like real golf clubs. Compact, minimal offset, a shape that doesn't scream, "I need help." A player's distance iron is built as a middle ground, less offset and more workability than a game improvement head, with a hint of forgiveness layered on top. That sounds like exactly what a senior golfer wants, right up until you look at who that hint of forgiveness is actually calibrated for. Most players' distance irons are still tuned around a strike pattern from a golfer who finds the centre of the face consistently, which means a repeatability that most seniors lost years before they ever noticed the numbers on their scorecard dropping. The lofts run stronger, the sole stays narrow, and the offset is kept minimal on purpose because the entire design brief is to give a good ball striker a little cushion. Offset, the amount the leading edge sits back behind the hosel, is worth understanding on its own. Less offset hands a skilled ball striker more shot-shaping control, but it also hands a slower, less consistent swing, less time to square the club face before impact, and that shows up on the course as more mishits leaking offline. That's a measurable trade-off built into the geometry. If your handicap has been climbing the last few seasons and you're still in a player's distance set because it's what you upgraded to when you finally left the blades behind, you didn't actually upgrade for your current swing. You upgraded sideways. Now, if you've been nodding along through blades and player's irons, you're probably already assuming the answer here is simple. Buy the biggest head, the widest sole, the most forgiveness money can buy, done. Hold on, that's not quite right either, and this next category is exactly why. Size on the rack and forgiveness in your hands aren't always the same thing, and the next shape proves it. There's a shape of iron that looks small and compact, almost like the blades we just ranked dead last, but plays like a much bigger forgiving head underneath that shape. Most senior golfers walk right past it because it doesn't look like a senior iron on the rack. This is the hollow body category, and it's the one most seniors never even get shown. Instead of a solid cavity back or a chunk of milled steel, the head is built hollow, closer to how a fairway wood or a hybrid gets constructed, with a thin, springy face and weight pushed low and back inside that hollow cavity. That construction does two things a solid cavity back can't. It gets the face hotter at impact, meaning it generates more ball speed on off-center contact without needing tour-level swing speed to activate it. And it drops the center of gravity lower than the compact shape would suggest just by looking at it, which gets the ball into the air with less swing effort behind it, exactly what a fading swing needs most in the longer irons, the spot in the bag where getting the ball up is toughest to begin with. Offset tends to sit in the middle of the pack on these two, more than a blade. Less than a full game improvement head, which is exactly why the shape reads as compact at address, while still giving a slower swing a fraction more time to square the face than a true player's iron would. The catch, and there is one, is that hollow body construction isn't automatically built for a slow swing, just because it's hollow. Some hollow body models are tuned for a stronger, faster player who wants a compact look with a bit of hot face distance added on top. The same trap as the player's distance category we just covered. The versions actually worth a senior's attention are the ones specifically built with a higher launch, a weaker loft, and a lighter overall construction. Look for the manufacturer's own senior or high launch designation before you assume hollow body automatically means built for me. TaylorMade's P790 is the model most equipment publications point to as the textbook example of this construction, a genuinely hollow head built to look and feel like a compact player's iron, while playing considerably more forgiving than that shape suggests at address. Even there, it's worth checking whether the specific version on the rack carries a higher launch or slower swing designation before you buy it on shape alone. That's the hidden tier most guys walk straight past without knowing it exists. Now let's get into the two categories actually built for a declining swing from day one, starting with the one most seniors should already be standing in front of. Standard game improvement irons bring real perimeter weighting to the party, a sole built wide enough to work with the turf instead of fighting it, and enough weight low in the head to get a tired swing's ball airborne without a fight. This is the shelf most seniors should have been shopping from the entire time, and most never do, because pro shop marketing keeps steering them toward the sleeker, smaller looking clubs as the serious golfer choice. Not every iron in this category pulls its weight equally though. A lineup with a dedicated high launch or senior tuned version will consistently outperform its own standard sibling because the standard build still assumes more club head speed than most senior swings actually produce. Ping's G440 belongs here as a genuine standout, more compact and closer to a traditional shape than its bigger G740 sibling, while still holding real forgiveness for a golfer who doesn't want to feel like he's swinging a shovel. Mizuno's JPX Hot Metal line earns its spot too, built around a thin, fast face that gets you distance without needing a fast swing to unlock it, and it's held its own in independent equipment testing against rivals priced well above it. If your current set is a decade or older and already a game improvement shape, the newer generation has genuinely moved the forgiveness and launch numbers forward. This isn't a tier where every option is interchangeable and you just grab whatever's cheapest, but there's still a tier above it. And that brings us to the top of the list. Super Game Improvement Irons, the category built to hand you the highest forgiveness, the easiest launch, and the most margin for error that iron engineering currently allows. Take Ping's G740 as the clearest example of what actually separates this tier from everything below it. Ping's own published numbers put the sole 22% wider and the blade 3% longer than the G440 we just covered, and that extra real estate isn't cosmetic. It drops the centre of gravity further, pushes the moment of inertia higher so a mishit twists less, and shapes the sole in a dual camber design meant to skate over turf instead of catching it on a strike that comes in shallow or a little off. For a senior swing specifically, that combination matters more here than almost anywhere else in the bag, because the longer irons are exactly where a declining swing struggles hardest to get the ball airborne. Not every senior needs to max out at this tier. If you're still striking it consistently and shooting in the 80s, game improvement might be plenty, and super game improvement could feel like overkill in your hands. But if you're losing strokes to thin contact, to a ball that won't get off the ground, or to a set that's older than your current swing, this is the tier built for exactly that problem. If you take one thing away from this entire ranking, it's this. Super game improvement irons are the category actually engineered for where your swing is today. And if you've been avoiding that shelf because the heads look bigger, you've been trading real strokes for a look nobody at your golf course is actually judging you on. 3 practical filters that carry more weight than any single brand name on this list, regardless of which tier you end up buying into. First, that shaft weight I mentioned earlier. If you're shopping in game improvement or super game improvement, graphite over steel measurably changes how the shaft loads and releases at a slower speed, and shedding that shaft weight alone can outweigh an entire tier jump in head technology. Second, shaft flex. A stiff or extra stiff flex, left over from a set bought back when your swing moved faster, won't load the way it's supposed to at your current speed, and that costs you feel and distance before the club head ever gets involved. Senior or regular flex sized to your actual swing speed lets the shaft do its job instead of fighting you on every strike. Third, lie angle and length. A set straight off the rack gets built around one assumed swing that's supposed to fit everybody, and if your posture or your swing plane has shifted even a little over the years, which it almost always has by your 60s, the wrong lie angle can undo a chunk of whatever forgiveness the head itself was engineered to provide. A short session with a fitter and a launch monitor costs less than a single round at most clubs, and it tells you more about which category actually fits your swing than any ranking, including this one, can from a screen. Bring the actual clubs you're currently playing to that session if you can. Comparing your real numbers against a demo set is worth more than comparing 2 demo sets against each other. This is the first ranking in what's going to be a running series here. Every major piece of equipment in the bag ranked category by category, specifically for a slower swing. Drivers, wedges and hybrids are coming, and none of them are getting the marketing brochure treatment either. If that's useful to you, hit subscribe now so the next one lands in front of you instead of some algorithm deciding you don't need it. Which category does your current set actually fall into? Put it in the comments below. I want to see how it stacks up across everyone watching. Get fit for the swing you actually have this year.